Deed sweater.
Good morning, mommies. We're back here alive with you as we always love to be on Tuesdays from Los Angeles. We have a show for you today. We are going to be talking about the fact that Trump has hit new poll lows. We're going to talk about what that looks like as primaries start to kick up. He also has this new slush fund, $1.7 billion that may go to January 6ers. So we're going to talk about where your tax dollars are going. Then Shein is buying up Everlane. This is like the ultimate millennial Gen Z mashup for $100 million. We're going to talk about what that means for fast fashion and like the clash of brands. And then we're going to be talking to, you've probably seen him everywhere, Brad Lander. I personally voted for him for city comptroller back in my New York days. Now he's running for Congress in the 10th district of New York. We're going to talk to him about being arrested by ICE. We're going to be talking to him about why every Democrat in New York is running for Congress. And we're going to talk to him about the future of the Democratic Party. So here we go. Hey, Meredith.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. I love the green.
Thank you. I've got a lot of haters out there, and they're very mad at me that I bought a sweater from a company that's owned by, probably in part by Gigi Hadid, which like, I just feel like at this point, when we see like, you know, we just were talking about this before we got on, the former CEO of Mango's son is being accused of killing him. Shein and Everlane are merging. Like, you guys, there's really like no good way to buy clothes in 2026.
I think we got bigger fish to fry, you know? I think we got bigger fish to fry than like that color pops. But
Thank you.
You know?
But you know what isn't popping?
Tell me.
Trump's approval ratings. I was
What
so
a
excited.
Segue. What a segue. Okay, do you want to take us into this story?
Well, I mean, I just think it's a very interesting, you know, I actually love diving deep into polling data, and I look at it a lot for another project that I'm working on. But right now there is this new poll from, I think the latest poll, and it's from Siena College, which, by the way, always like the most random universities. It's like,
I know, that's so true.
It's always like, dude, what's happening in a Quinnipiac?
Okay, did you know that Quinnipiac, I grew up down the street from
Yeah,
Quinnipiac?
of course.
Yeah, like literally down the street, and it's like this very small, like rural university.
But they do great polling work. Siena does great polling work. And so some of the ones that I was really digging into right now is some of the questions on this were, do you think the United States is on the right track or it's headed in the wrong direction? Only 32% of Americans in this poll think that the United States is headed in the right direction. And then there was another one that I thought was really interesting, which was thinking about the nation's economy. How would you rate economic conditions today? And so I think one of the things that question asks is like, it's not like, oh, how are you doing? Right.
Yes,
it's like, how is the country doing?
Right.
And only 4% of voters said excellent. And I'm just thinking like, that means that a lot of these people who have said that they're so bought into MAGA and Trump really do see the cracks.
100%. Although I will say in this poll, there's also a data line that suggests that Democrats are not doing well either.
Oh, yeah. Nobody's doing well.
26% of respondents say they approve of the party's direction. And so the whole thing is just sort of like mess, but it makes it also really interesting as we go into the midterms. Trump's approval rating is at a new low of 37%. The only time it was lower was in January 2021, right as he was about to leave office, right after January 6th.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers, the thing that I have to say is like, I know it's so cheesy, but the numbers don't lie. And he can post whatever he wants, but like, these are polls that, and like you said, to the point about the Democratic Party, I was thinking about the Democrats this morning, and I was thinking about how they won't release the 2024 election. I mean, I'm calling it an autopsy. I don't know what you would call it. The report.
Yeah. But I think everybody's calling it the autopsy.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? At this point, I don't need it. At this point, all I know is, as a woman on the internet, I know that 60% of this is just that we really hate women.
Say more.
I just think it's like, why did Hillary Clinton lose? Why are Nithya Raman and Karen Bass having, Spencer Pratt running circles around them while everybody who even should support them is, throwing all this vitriol at them? Like, a lot of why I think Kamala Harris lost and Hillary Clinton lost and what's happening to Karen Bass and Nithya Raman. And we can get into the whole part of some of these are women of color, or most of them are women of color. So they're held to an even higher standard. But like, even as women on the internet, don't you feel like you deal with it all the time?
Oh, constantly. Yeah. The barrier is just like the level at which you have to operate in order to get the same like basic level of respect is totally, yeah. Like, and there's no woman on planet Earth that could do what Trump does and be president of the United States. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
only a man, only Spencer Pratt could do, like Lauren Conrad couldn't come out and run for mayor with the antics that Spencer Pratt has, without a doubt.
Even when Lauren Conrad was doing her Laguna Beach reunion thing, which like, please show me the Lauren Conrad, skeletons in the closet. But even she was like, I was seeing people make tons of comments about her body, her face, like what, and people could say, oh, that's just being in the public eye. But I was like, I don't see anyone making that comment about Stephen Colletti.
No, of course.
And so it's just like, there's always the higher standard.
Of course. Yeah. Well, Trump is still in trouble. You know what I thought was really interesting? Did you see that Bill Cassidy, the senator from Louisiana, lost his primary?
Dr. Bill Cassidy sucks to suck. But on the one hand, so here's my problem with Bill Cassidy is private equity. Before Trump, when Biden was in office, Dr. Bill Cassidy was working closely with friend of the show, Senator Ed Markey, on really good stuff in private equity because it's ravaging Louisiana hospitals.
Right.
When Trump became president, it was like, he became the head of that committee, the HELP committee, which oversees a lot of this stuff. And all of a sudden, private equity didn't seem like such a big deal to Dr. Bill Cassidy, private equity in healthcare. So anyway, but let's talk about why he lost.
Well, I just think it's really interesting. So Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, he voted to impeach Donald Trump during the first term, during the January 6th insurrection. And Trump obviously didn't like that. He became sort of like a Trump nemesis. But he kind of like skirted both lines. Like, I think if you're going to go against Trump, you have to go like Liz Cheney. You have to like go big or go home. And so then in the second term, Bill Cassidy voted to confirm RFK Jr. I remember us talking about this, where I think everybody was looking because Bill Cassidy is a doctor,
right,
and has spoken out and been like, this vaccine stuff is ridiculous.
And like a real medical doctor, you guys, not like Dr. Oz.
Right. Like a legit, like he was a practicing doctor. Yeah. And I think everybody thought, oh, he's going to be the one that's going to vote with the Democrats against RFK Jr. And of course he didn't. And now he's been voted out of his seat. And I just think what's interesting about it is like, I don't know, there's two things that are interesting about it. One, Trump still holds a lot of power in these primaries, right? Like the woman who Trump endorsed against Bill Cassidy did win against him. But on the other hand, it also says like, hey, like you have to make up your mind here. And so today, Thomas Massie from Kentucky has his primary. And Thomas Massie, I will say, has been, like he and I have different politics, but he has like for sure gone against Trump. He's the reason really that the Epstein files have been opened in the way that they have. So I'm curious how that ends. But I feel like all of this to say, the polling, seeing how like it's falling apart a little bit in these primaries, it just says so much about where MAGA is going headed into November.
And I mean, whoever you're getting that isn't Bill Cassidy, that is aligned more with Trump, is going to be more extreme. 100%. And I think that's the other piece of it. I do think that the thing that Rep. Massie has going for him is that like he's coming from a state where Andy Beshear is beloved.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think there are people who are willing to look the other way at the Trump piece of it versus
that.
Yeah.
That. And I think the Epstein thing it's like one of the issues that cuts across the political divide. And so I think that Thomas Massie, like I think he's strategically very smart. I think he does care, but I think strategically, if there's something to break with Trump, that's the one to do it where people will forgive him for that, I think. Before we move on to our other story, I'm obsessed with this slush fund.
I know you are.
I'm obsessed with
Remind
this.
people what a slush fund is, though, because I think it's really easy to forget.
So, I mean, a slush fund is basically a do whatever you want with it fund.
That's called my bank account.
Yeah, I mean, but like literally, it's something that isn't budgeted for something specific, that doesn't have like rules and oversight against it. It's just a pile of money. So the long and short of it is, back in 2016, Trump refused to release his tax documents, which is like every presidential candidate, every president has done it since Richard Nixon. This is like a common thing to do.
Sure.
And he decided, like, no, I'm not doing it. And so then somebody at the IRS leaked the tax information. And then now in 2026, Trump sued the IRS, saying, you've caused me immense damages. He sued them for $100 billion. But then now Trump is the president, and so he oversees some of the decisions that the IRS makes. So it's like he's suing himself effectively for the tax dollars that you and I pay, right? And but people were starting to be like, wait, you can't do that. That's blatant corruption. So he dropped the charge, but then started this like slush fund with the Justice Department, where he says 1776, $1.776 billion, but he loves a tacky number. And that money, he says, is going to go to people who were affected by, weaponized by the Biden administration. And specifically, that includes January 6th insurrectionists. So it's just like this, like, it's just so shocking to me. It's just so brazen to be like, the president of the United States was going to sue the government, was going to sue the American people. Like, that is what he is doing for this money. And now it's a slush fund, which, by the way, will only go up until right before he's out of office. So it's just very clearly like, here's money if you commit crimes against me, which, by the way, as we like look into the next elections, what does that tell people, who do things on his behalf? I just think that this is one of those stories where it's like, it's making my eyes pop out of my head.
I mean, I would argue I've been personally victimized by the Democrats.
How so?
I mean, there's plenty of shit they've not voted with in the way that I would like.
Totally.
Guys, who voted to approve the DHS funding?
Amen.
Like,
Amen.
So I also think I am owed a chunk of that money.
Yeah. I mean, sure. I think that, here's the thing.
Exposed to the Kenneth Starr report at an age that I wasn't ready for it. Again, that is the fault of the Democratic Party.
I think Monica Lewinsky would agree.
Right? Like, so anyway, I will be putting in for my reimbursement.
Yeah. Well, it's just so crazy. It's like these taxpayer dollars that like, they affect me, like it's tough, right? You pay this money and you're like, okay, well, like I believe in the public good. I believe in public education. I believe in universal health. Like I believe in all of these things that I do want my tax dollars to go to. And now, and I think this is why the polling is bad, it's going to a war in Iran that nobody understands why we are there. It doesn't seem to be helping us. And apparently now it's going to a slush fund for people who broke into the Capitol. So
I kind of keep forgetting that we're at war with Iran. Like it's I think one of the things that Trump does really well in this presidency is he like has things that continue to go on in the background, but then he like distracts us with something new. So it's like that's the 1.6 billion, whatever, like it's the money today, but that way he can continue to do the thing over here. That way you don't look over here.
Yeah.
I will say correct. Like you're going to say that I'm so wrong on this. I actually think he's been a little quiet the last 2 weeks.
Well, he's been in China. So
right.
he hasn't been in the United States.
But he hasn't been he hasn't had a meltdown on social media in as intense. I mean, let's talk about a month ago. A month ago, he was fighting with the Pope. He was a fucking schoolyard bully. I like your brother more than you. But I think, so I do think, I don't know if Susie Wiles has pulled the reins back a little bit. I don't know if this is what I think. I think they're doing such unhinged stuff that they're being quieter. That's what I think is happening.
He might also have health issues. There's all this stuff coming out about how he keeps on going to Walter Reed for what he calls dentist appointments. But I've heard a lot of people who know the ongoings of the White House, and they have a dentist in the White House. So unless you're doing something,
what a dream.
right? I know. I had that exact thought. I was like, wow, I would get my teeth cleaned every day.
Do you know I get my teeth cleaned 4 times a year now?
Really?
Since I started getting my teeth cleaned 4 times a year, vast improvement. I have to pay for one out of pocket, but highly recommend.
I should do that.
Yeah.
But anyways, I also wonder if he's having health issues in the background. Like he keeps going to Walter Reed, which seems unnecessary for the types of things that a healthy
There's
person.
so much stuff that you could, if you are the president, that you can get done with the White House physician.
Right.
Like there's so much, like you can get IVs, you can get, whatever you.
100.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like crazy, like things that you couldn't even fathom.
What
But
if he's like, I just love the cafeteria.
Yeah, everybody loves a hospital cafeteria, famously.
You guys, I love a hospital cafeteria. I really do.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like you have to understand, like I grew up with like a terminally ill mom. So like I spent so much time at the hospital cafeteria. Me and the MGH Fruit Street cafeteria. Okay. The Papagenos, they had a Papagenos inside of it. And then of course,
but that's different if you have a Papagino.
well, it wasn't just that. I also love the chicken salad. And then, the second act of my life is that I then went and got a job at Mass General as an adult. And wow, what a dream that I got to go to the cafeteria whenever I wanted with my own money. And you would say like, oh, Meredith, like, doesn't it bring back painful memories? No, not if there's Papagenos involved.
Yeah. It's like a self-medicating.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you like Papagenos?
I gotta be honest, I don't know if I've ever had Papagenos.
What?
Yeah. I've also never had Taco Bell.
Well, like Taco Bell I get, but like Papagenos to me is
Gabby
such a
is
New
giving
England
me such side eye
thing.
right now in the booth.
Gabby, have you ever had Papagenos? No, but Vienna definitely has had Papagenos because it's a new. I'm gonna get you some Papagenos.
All
right. Okay. Anyway,
before we get to Brad Lander, let's quickly talk about. You pointed this story out to me, and I think it's really interesting. So
I was really interested in this. So Shein, which is far and away the fastest of the fast fashion companies, is buying Everlane, which is been around now for probably like 12-ish years.
Yeah. And
their whole thing has always been like that they are really focused on sustainability, which I think is nearly impossible to do as sort of like a large, big, I wouldn't call it a big box store, but like a brick and mortar store that's throughout the country, whatever. But their whole thing has sort of been like transparency on pricing and, using more sustainable fabrics, etc.
It literally says it on their website.
I mean, like each garment will tell you like, it costs us this to make this, it costs us that to make that. Like they took all of that out and basically they haven't been doing well. And I think it's for a few reasons, but I think one of those reasons is that people are tightening their wallets. I also think that another reason is that like brick and mortar, which is what they sunk a lot of money into, you were saying this yesterday, just isn't doing as well these days, even though I still love going to like an actual store and trying something on. But I knew they were in financial trouble, and I cannot believe that the decision was to
go to Shein.
Yeah. Also, too, I'm like $100 million. That feels like nothing.
Yeah.
I heard that, and all I could think of was, do you remember the clip of Brandon Davis when he was with Paris Hilton and he was talking about Lindsay Lohan? He was like, they were both drunk. He's like, Lindsay Lohan is so fucking broke. She's got like $8 million. I remember. But anyway, my point is, when I heard the $100 million, I was like, that doesn't even feel like a lot. Like
I looked it up, and they were once valued at a $600 million.
Right, exactly.
So it definitely has fallen. You know what else I think it is a signal of, that I think, because Everlane, I feel like it is like exactly our age group, like millennial to elder millennial, like basics, very clean women who work, who socially signal to one another that they are socially conscious. And I think that has gone away. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's also a signal that there was, like Everlane was one of those things where it's like other women shopped at Everlane and you knew that they were like conscious and they wore like clean fabrics.
Up level of gap, basically.
100%.
But I also think
but I don't think we care anymore.
I also think they probably got hit by tariffs. So I bet their prices increased. And then it was like, that blue Veronica Beard suit that I just got that was very expensive. I was like, it's beautifully constructed. And then I was reading the tags. It's made in the USA. And so I was like, they probably have to make their shit a little bit more expensive now because they're making it in the USA, but it's beautiful quality. And I also like love that it's made in, not that things can't be good if they're made in other countries, but I'm just saying there's also something great about that.
This thought is just occurring to me now, but it's also interesting that it's like the middle class, we talk about it, is shrinking. And this is a very good example of the middle class in fashion going away, which is like, you have things like Shein, which are like cheap, easy to buy. You can buy something new anytime the trends change for super cheap is like, like low class buys, you know, like they're inexpensive, or you can go to something like Veronica Beard, which is like a much higher price point. And Everlane was that sort of like middle class thing, where it's like you could get something that was nice, but you know, like not too expensive. And so it's sort of also a signal of like the shrinking middle class, which now I'm like, wow, that's a think piece.
Can I also just add, I completely agree with you. Can I also add this? One of the things that people will say, they go, well, H&M is fast fashion and Zara is fast fashion. And that's not untrue. It's completely true. Like I would argue, like even probably Veronica Beard in some ways is fast fashion. But what I will say is that when you look at the data, like I've looked at these charts before, and it's like the Shein amount of fast fashion and materials that go out and all this sort of stuff is like astronomical
100%.
compared to Zara, H&M, you know, Abercrombie, all these other places. So when people say like, well, it's all fast fashion, it's like, well, there are some players who are worse than others. And so what do you think the future of Everlane is?
I mean, probably Sheinified. I think it's probably, you know, like we talked about this, you know, Quince, which like I don't know Quince's practices and whatnot, but like it's this online brand for basics. And I think that's probably where Everlane will go more. It's like they'll probably close all of their brick and mortar stores. It'll probably become like faster fashion basics. Another thing that I was thinking about with this is, you know, like Shein also bought a stake in Forever 21 and Topshop. And so like it's all becoming the same back end.
I know.
You know?
It's all the same stuff. They just make the quality like a little bit worse, a little bit better, a little bit like because like some
different
of the stuff,
fabrics, different
but
styles.
They're using a lot of the same prints. They're using a lot of the same whatever. You know, my favorite thing in the world back in the day was going on a Friday night before I would go out. I would go to the mall and I would just buy a full new outfit at Forever 21.
Well, that's what
like,
Shein is.
I know.
You know. Like that's the thing is I think that Everlane represents sort of the girl boss era when it was like, oh, you'd buy like nice, clean basics that you felt like sustain, you know, with your like, little tote bag. And now it's like, fuck it. I'm, you know, buying stuff off the internet because I can. You know,
I'm so excited because, you know, I heard he's a frequent shopper at Shein.
Yeah. No way. No way. Not my city comptroller. Okay. We're about to move over to Brad Lander, who, full disclosure, I voted for city comptroller when I was living in New York City.
Is this an endorsement?
This is not an endorsement. I'm not voting in New York.
He's not running for that.
He's not running for that. I'm full disclosure. But I say this to be like, he always struck me as like a real public servant, you know? Like he's a guy who's been in like the trenches of city in New York for a long time, but now he is running to represent New York's 10th congressional district. He has focused on affordable housing, workers' rights, transit throughout his career in public office. And like I can attest, I saw it happen. Do we have Mr. Brad Lander with us today? What a treat.
Can we hear? Oh, there we go.
Great to be with you guys.
Oh, it's so great to see you.
Great to see you as well. I'm just coming from the Epstein Files reading room where Eliza Orlins is doing this 24-hour filibuster reading. So very emotional.
Yeah.
Enraging.
Wait, I saw that. I've seen her talk about it, and I saw you right before we get into our questions. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Institute for Primary Facts and the Save America movement have organized a reading room. It's up for another week at 101 Reed Street in Manhattan, and then they hope to have it travel the country. They have printed out all of the Epstein files, 3,437 volumes, tens, hundreds, thousands, millions of pages. And in order to bring attention to them and not to allow this to like escape our focus, Eliza Orlins organized a filibuster, a 24-hour reading, and she read a lot of them. Survivors who are in the files read many of them, and then she invited a lot of other people to come and participate in the reading. And it's enraging. In the just couple of dozen pages that I read were a discussion between like a managing partner at a New York law firm. Can you get a tourist visa? And can you revoke a tourist visa in an email with Epstein? And then casual, just super dehumanizing and sexist conversations. Anyway, so I think she's wrapped up just a few minutes ago, but I would urge anybody who can to go read and just like keep our focus on this, like both the specific harms to the victims here and demanding accountability for them, but also on the elite rod of the Epstein class and on misogyny and sexism and violence throughout our society. So very powerful event they organized.
Yeah. I guess, we were just talking, there's some midterm or there's some primaries happening today. And we were wondering, what role do you think at this point? Because I think that we've done a good job of sort of Trump has done, I don't mean it's a good job, but like, I
Yeah.
feel like Epstein files are not the number one thing in the news right now. So what, role do you think that's going to play in people showing up at some of these primaries today? Do you think
Yeah.
they actually care still? Is it still top of mind?
Well, this is why Eliza organized this, is to try to make sure it doesn't get lost. Now, it is part of the corruption of like elite rot and corruption that is empowering Donald Trump, that is driving up prices, and that is exploiting people. So, it is not by itself what people are focused on, which is why I thought this event was so good, but it fits in. I mean, Donald Trump has driven his own ratings down by going to war and driving prices up in a way that people recognize as just, like sociopathic. But I do believe that a focus on his corruption is one important thing. And you can see that corruption in his foreign policy. You can see that corruption in his tax policy, as we saw yesterday, where he's just stealing, $1.5 billion from the American people. But you can see it in the Epstein files, where it's, violent, harmful, and exploitative, but also just so corrupt. And I do think building a broad enough movement to get people on board is going to require both that focus on like taking on billionaires for the affordability, for the cost of living, but also taking on kind of the wealthy special interests that have corrupted our society. People are so hungry for something more decent and human. And I do think this is one place where we can insist on that.
So speaking of which, that's a good point. So you are also in a primary, and we were just looking at polls before you came on, and while Trump's poll numbers are tanking, the Democrats are not doing so much better in the eyes of the American people. It feels like everybody is running for Congress in New York right now, at least from the outside. It's like a lot of Democrats, and so I wonder, like, how you all differentiate from one another, and in this exercise, what you're finding about the future of the Democratic Party.
Yeah. I mean, look, people don't know what the Democratic Party stands for right now. The kind of establishment leadership is failing to meet this moment. That's why I'm running this primary. My race only has two people. Me, somebody who, has been working for 30 years, like shoulder to shoulder with my neighbors on affordable housing and good jobs and public schools, but also standing up to Trump and ICE, but also the corporate interests that are kicking tenants out of their homes and exploiting workers. So that's me, kind of a progressive fighter neighbor. The other candidate is Dan Goldman, who is an establishment corporate Democrat, and who, will show you how he fights Trump, but can't take on the wealthy special interests because he's backed by them, by Wall Street and crypto and APAC donors. And I think it's just part of what people are fed up with. So, yes, I mean, we need to show people a Democratic Party that is fighting harder for working people against all of, Trump's, monstrous, abductions of our neighbors and taking us into reckless and illegal wars, but also taking on the private equity landlords and the companies that have gigged out all work and taken away people's health care. And then also showing people something more hopeful and grounded in the spirit of being good neighbors together. And, I think that's what like James Tallarico did in Texas. Like that's a model that I like. But I felt it most palpably. I was at the Bruce Springsteen concert the other night. And it was so powerful. Like he has never been so political. But his politics are a politics of neighbors and working people. And like when he did Streets of Minneapolis and just talked about how they stood shoulder to shoulder with their neighbors and how we're going to win justice for Alex Preddy and Renee Good, that working people have to do it themselves right now. And what we've got to do is make these primaries not like, who am I going to send to Washington and hope they kind of take care of something over there, but how do we build a movement of neighbors, of tenants and homeowners, of workers, of people who insist on taking this government back, unrigging the system that Trump and his billionaire cronies have rigged, and building something better that genuinely responds to the moment we're in.
Speaking of neighbors being taken by the Trump administration, you were sort of famously, I think the moment that you came to like a national, as a national character, like I knew you as a New Yorker, but as a national character, was we all saw you get arrested when you were escorting immigrants during their immigration courts to protect them from ICE. I think we have a video that we can throw up in the background. You were supposed to be in court last week for misdemeanors. But prosecutors postponed that. And so you were back, in ICE detention at immigration court. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience is like and like is it effective like as an activist?
So about a year ago now, we're reaching the 1 year point when ICE started lawlessly abducting people in immigration court in the ways that, you could see. I was, arm in arm there with a guy named Edgardo, who he had just come to court. So this was last June. Abduction started about a month before that. And I had gone several times before, met people at their hearings, introduced myself, got to know their name, heard a little about their story and their case. They were there like they were supposed to be, showing up as they had been instructed to do. A judge would give them a chance to say a little bit and then generally say, okay, I'm going to give you more time to find a lawyer or to add some information to your asylum application. And your individual hearing for asylum won't be probably for, a year, 2 years, 3 years. But they would give them a next, date to come back. And then they would leave the courtroom having just been told by a judge, come back a year from now or 6 months from now, and then masked ICE agents with no legal basis, with no judicial warrant, would just grab them in the hallways. And so that is outrageous and illegal. We said it was illegal at the time, but now we know it actually is. Yesterday, a federal district court judge issued a stay on ICE arrests in New York City's immigration courts because back in March, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, Jay Clayton, admitted in a filing to the judge that the guidance that ICE has been relying on for these arrests for a year does not apply, never applied to immigration court. So that's why we've been there, bearing witness, demanding that people's rights are respected. And is it effective? Like, it's so hard to know what the effective tactics to fight fascism are. What I will say is, first, in a lot of cases, you are able to get somebody's information and then help them get a lawyer to file a habeas motion. And many people have been released as a result, and thank God they at least get out. In a few cases, I do believe that kind of protective presence has made ICE decide not to arrest people. I was in court last Monday with a young man from Mauritania, and ICE agents were mustering nearby, and you could see them eyeing him, but we stayed with him, and eventually those ICE agents went away. I'm not saying it's because we were there, but and now the court filing yesterday that got this hearing, that got this stay issued by Judge Castell, is because a great organization called The Door and African Communities Together filed a lawsuit. And they're part of this movement challenging ICE's basis for abducting people. Now, I will say, I just heard that there was an abduction at 26 Federal Plaza this morning, even after yesterday's stay. So I will be back there tomorrow with that order from the judge. Like, this is now not just lawless and illegal, it is a violation of a federal judge's stay. And I guess it is a movement of neighbors together, like they did in Minneapolis, that did push ICE and Bovino out of their city. And it's going to have to be a movement of Americans that do the same.
Yeah. Well, I guess that brings me to a question. We have, if you are elected, we still have 2 more years of Trump. And so I think right now, we led a fundraiser 2 weeks ago for the families at Dilley to fill up their commissary account.
Thank you.
Oh, please. It's our pleasure. We raised $118,000 in 72 hours so these people could have clean drinking water. And some of the reactions that we got to this were like, well, you guys should close Dilley. And we're like, okay, yeah, we'll on it. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like,
let's call Brad Lander. We'll make him do it.
But I guess my thought process is, if we have 2 more years of Trump, what do you think that we can do if we can have the House and the Senate really, fired up for a different regime change just in those places? What can be done in those 2
Well,
years?
accountability is what the House and the Senate should be able to deliver with or without Trump. So let's just take the crimes of ICE. I think we should start the ICE oversight hearings in Minneapolis with an effort to bring about the prosecution of the murderers of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. That's done by local prosecutors, but they need some help from the federal government. Well, Congress can give them that help. We should start those congressional hearings, not in the rotunda, but in Minneapolis, and demand accountability for, in that case, I think murder is what should be charged. It looks like they are moving to charge in Minnesota for another individual who was killed, who died in ICE custody. So that, and obviously you can bring in some of the people from Minneapolis who saw and witnessed things and help Americans see, what is taking place, and that there can be accountability when you get a partnership between Democrats at the federal level who are willing to stand up and fight, and prosecutors at the state and local level who will demand accountability. Now, at the same time, I hope our presidential candidates would also come to Minneapolis and articulate what their vision is for an immigration system that is humane and rational and ordered, and articulate what that would be so that we are winning accountability over the next 2 years and painting a picture of a country that people would want to live in again. It's going to have to be both. We will have to win the White House back to transform policy. But Congress, if it will do its job, can deliver accountability now.
Okay, before we let you go, I used to be a New Yorker. Now I live in LA. But so I decided to ask my uncle, who is a lifelong New Yorker, retared public school teacher, to ask him a few questions for you. So I've got two.
Great. Love it.
One, like lifelong New Yorker, public school, He says, when you ran for mayor, your campaign centered around homelessness and housing affordability in New York City. How can you take that to the federal level at Congress? Like, what can you do at the bigger level?
Great. Well, thanks so much to him. 2 ideas. First, as comptroller, I issued the city's first what are called social bonds. Those are municipal bonds backed by the city's, tax revenue. And I issued $4 billion of social bonds, and that generated 12,000 units of genuinely affordable housing. The federal government has never issued social bonds using U.S. treasuries, which obviously there's a lot more of that than there is of New York City's debt. So that model of social bonds for affordable housing could generate billions of dollars that we could use all across America to build affordable housing that people need. And, that can be in mixed income buildings that have some market rate, but some affordable. So people could live in neighborhoods with good schools and services. And then the second idea that really comes directly from my mayoral campaign is a plan for what are called street-to-home vouchers to end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness. We don't have to be a society where our mentally ill neighbors sleep on the sidewalks and subway platforms of our community. And this is not so far-fetched. The federal government effectively in New York City ended veteran street homelessness with these vouchers called VASH that are available for any municipality in the country. If you've got veterans who are sleeping on the street, the federal government pays for a voucher to get them off the street and into supportive housing. And it's been very effective. We could do the same for people with serious mental illness right now. And it doesn't even cost that much money from the point of view of the federal government.
Interesting. This is such like a big issue in LA right now. And so I haven't heard anybody say that in LA. So.
I know. Actually, really quick. If you could give Angelino's one piece of advice
for their mayoral race.
When it comes to voting, I'm not asking you to endorse Nithya Raman or Karen Bass, but if you could give them one piece of advice when it comes to thinking about Spencer Pratt, what would it be?
Well, look, I mean, it would have been adopt ranked choice voting in the way that we did. I know you have the top 2 model, which can help. I mean, obviously, it can't both be Spencer Pratt. So whether it winds up being Nithya or Mayor Bass, who, faces him in the runoff, if you used ranked choice voting in the first round, I think you'd get a runoff that was between Nithya and Karen Bass, and then you could make that choice without having to worry about Spencer Pratt. Ironically or not, I actually sponsored the legislation that brought ranked choice voting to New York City I'm still personally trying to decide whether that was a good idea. But, what that brought me to was a moment when it was clear that I did not want Andrew Cuomo to be the mayor of New York City. And I had to accept that what that meant was to cross-endorse Zoran because he was the one with the chance to beat him. And we need to be able to approach politics as a kind of a team sport for the city and country we love.
Republicans
and unfortunately,
do that really well. Like, that's the thing I'll give
Republicans.
Sometimes they do that really well. They're willing to kind of sometimes, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Anyway.
All right. Last question from Uncle Paul. He claims that you guys chatted at a No Kings rally in Manhattan, that you guys hung out together, and that you sang verses of All You Fascists Bound to Lose by Woody Guthrie. He also claims that you might have a couple of new verses that you wrote to that song, and we want to see if we can debut them here on The Moment.
Oh my goodness. You'll have to invite me back. That was with the Resistance Revival Chorus, this amazing group. And I'm like the men's, that's an all women's chorus who I form like the men's auxiliary for. And I have performed with them a couple of times, and I am hoping to come back with them and record a couple of verses of All You Fascists that speak to the moment that we're in, to ICE thugs and to Trump. And so I'll come back with them and perform it, but I'll need a little backup and a little time to bring those verses. But you tell Uncle Paul that I'm excited to do it. We also did like a big Down by the Riverside. We needed an anti-war song at that No Kings March. So I'm happy to come back with a little prep and a little backup. And but also Uncle Paul and I can.
Thrilled to hear it.
Harmonize.
If he wants to join the men's auxiliary for the Resistance Revival Chorus with me, we'll do it together.
Tempt him with a good time. I bet you anything. If there's one thing about Uncle Paul is he loves public service and he loves a good anti-fascist song.
It's nice as it goes. As it happens, I have an Uncle Paul as well. So
I have an Uncle Paul too, who's the best. Oh my God, Uncle Paul's for life. Brad Lander, thank you for hanging out with us.
Good luck.
Great to be on with you. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you. One of our friends who also lives in New York, I said,
I'm taking these off for a second.
Oh, okay, sure.
It did affect the numbers.
There
we'll
we
talk
go.
about it later.
One of our friends who lives in New York, I asked her, because I asked around to, I have a lot of friends and family who still live in New York. And so I asked her, I was like, what should we ask him? And she said, ask him why he's such a mensch. Ask him why he's such a mensch. And it's true. You meet Brad Lander and you're like, this is a good one. That's a good one.
Well, let's see. What's having a moment for you right now?
The TV show Couples Therapy.
Oh my gosh, you love Couples Therapy.
I love Couples Therapy. And this is, I'm sorry, it's the best season yet. They really slapped this season. Anybody who's watching knows. I feel like oftentimes with Couples Therapy, there's like a couple of couples that you're like, ugh, both of these people are insufferable. Or one person that you're like, this person is awful.
Right.
But almost entirely, there was one couple where there was a guy by the end. For those of you who are watching, Clinton, I was like, oh,
is he the Trumper?
No. And then that was the other one. But this was interesting is there was a Trumper couple and like they started the season clearly trying to set up that they were going to like fight about Trump in politics. There was a woman who was like very passionately against Trump and then this like classically Trumper guy. But part of what I found was interesting is they clearly like wanted to start there because they were probably looking for a season angle. And while it was, a running thing in their marriage and like she really was very, very upset, at the end of the day, it wasn't how their marriage, it wasn't the issue in their marriage.
The issue in their marriage is that she wants to drive the kids like an hour and a half every day to go to school so they don't have to change schools.
Oh, you started watching
No,
it?
I didn't start watching it. I watched clips, baby, just like everybody watches
like
The
everybody
Moment.
else, yeah.
But I was like, oh, that does feel like it is a recipe for disaster.
I think part of what I find fascinating about couples therapy is for one thing, I don't know, for me, I have so much empathy for all these people, like for all my annoyance of people's every day, because like I'm an introvert and everybody gets on my nerves. You sit here and watch this and you're like, everybody's going through something. It's complicated. This Trumper guy, like, I don't know. I had like affection for him. I was like, look, like, I think you're insane. It was like very cultish, like he couldn't really explain why it was.
Why he's
you couldn't, he was just like, I like him and I'm hopeful. And she was like, I don't like him because I'm very worried that ICE is taking people off the street. You know what I mean? Like there's like a distinct, anyways.
Yeah.
But like, I always like it because, you know, you're like, people are imperfect, and then how they relate to one another. It's just fascinating to me. And like Dr. Orna needs to come on the show and give us couples therapy. That's what I think.
I don't know that we need to go that far.
Fine.
We don't need to get it. We don't need to get, I don't need to do, I've seen that casting many a times, and I'm like, yeah, that's a bridge too far for me.
I actually know somebody who's doing the casting for next season, and I was asking her about that process, and it's interesting, you know, like, because it is also like, I can't imagine, I could never do that, because it is like very, if you've never watched it, like it is very much couples therapy. Like it is not scripted, and they like get into it and they talk about like all these horrible things from their childhood and how it plays out in their relationship, and they're in tears and they're yelling and they're saying unattractive things about themselves and their partner. And like, I don't know how, I'm like so curious how the production goes that they can lose themselves in that way, you know, like forget that they are on a television show, a popular television show.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really hard to like edit therapy in a way that like would feel fair too. Like, I mean, like reality TV is already so complicated enough, but then you edit like therapy sessions, like because they want to create a narrative.
Yes.
So like there's so much that's probably left on the cutting room floor, and I don't know.
But I think that they do a good job. Like I've never seen, and like who knows, but I've never seen a couple afterwards come out and be like, that was unfair, or I'm really angry at how it turned out. Like I've only ever seen people come out and be like, this is how our relationship is now, or say nothing.
Don't you think there's probably something in that they sign?
I mean, you would think so, but I've seen couples talk about their experience on couples therapy. And so that you can't sign an NDA and say you can only say good things about your experience. And so
That's
the fact,
true.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, like maybe, but I think that there's probably an NDA for like a certain period of time, but not
right, because then they might just not like ask you back or something.
Yeah, and I also think you can't. That's also probably there's probably like not HIPAA, but like there's probably like ethical reasons why you can't give somebody an NDA while you're also offering them therapy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
What's having a moment for you?
Oh, you know, I saw this yesterday on, I think it was People Instagram, but Aqua, the group who
like
sang
I'm a Barbie girl,
who sang Barbie Girl,
okay,
have parted ways after 30 years together. And I just thought it was so funny because the announcement was like, Aqua has, you know, announced that they will be disbanding. And I was like, I just assumed that Aqua had disbanded in the summer
1997.
Yeah. And so it's just so funny that I don't know. And then people in the comments were like, how, why do they even think this is news? And so then I was like in the comments and I was like, hater. And then this guy like got really mad at me and he was like, I'm a fan. And I was like, are you? Like, who's a fan of Aqua?
Do they have any other song other than the Barbie song?
I think they do. And I couldn't remember them, but like there definitely was like one other song that they had that I think like was on, I don't know if it was on the radio, but I think like it was like, you know, a club song or whatever. But anyway, I just was like, wow. But then also I thought, wow, good for them that they stayed together all this time.
True.
Hopefully they cashed
music
in like a little bit on, you know, when the Barbie movie came out, that was probably a big year for them.
I think there was something there where like they didn't end up giving the rights to the song to the movie. There was something that happened there. I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, they released their last album was in 2011. I just think like this is like a couple where like the mom and dad weren't sleeping in the same bed for years, and then they're like, we're getting a divorce, and you're like, well, yeah,
we kind of
knew. So anyway, I wish them all well as they go into their
single
new
careers. Yeah.
Also, the photo of them was like from 1997. But yeah, that's it. So anyway, you guys, come back on Friday. We will have Rep Ted Lieu is our guest. Really excited to talk to him.
Yeah.
He is the rep for actually where we are right now in Beverly Hills, but also lots of other areas along. I was looking at his constituencies, like, and I was like, this is so many cities that like you could poll someone and they would know it's Santa Monica, it's Venice, it's, you know, Manhattan Beach. So
it's the West Side, really?
It's like, it's really the West Side all the way down to Palos Verdes. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just like sort of one of those places that I was was like, oh, when you think about like some people have like one known city and then they'll have like a bunch of little small ones. But anyway, I was just like, wow.
Yeah, he's going to be interesting. He also, I think I'm particularly excited. He went hard at Pam Bondi.
I know.
He like had a because he's like sort of one of those like quiet operators. And then he had this moment. And so he's like a big get because he's not like a TV guy.
We've been trying to get him for a long time. It wasn't that he didn't want to come on. It's just that we didn't have the right contact. And now we have the right contact.
Busy.
So yes. All right, guys, come hang out.
Subscribe to the YouTube. We need you. Like we said at the top, it is like in politics, in news, it is harder for women. It just is. And the best way you can help us, have more women's voices out there in pop culture, politics, news is to subscribe to The Moment on YouTube. Find us on Instagram. Thank you to Vienna, who is our executive producer. Thank you to Gabby in the booth. Thank you to our pals over at Full Picture. Thank you to Brad Lander. Thank you to my co-host Meredith. Thank you to our audience. Come back Friday.
Bye, guys.